Hey guys, how you doing? This is Mike McCormick with Advanced Criminology. Today is February the 2nd, 2018, and tonight we want to discuss a statement that the Commissioner made in a news conference today along with the Mayor when they were being interviewed by news media in Baltimore about what the plan is to reduce crime in Baltimore. And the Commissioner was asked what his thoughts were regarding the officers that are on trial now for racketeering and corruption, and he indicated that the behavior of those officers was not representative of the whole department, and he addressed the fact that we have a few bad apples. And so I wanted to address that statement in and of itself when you say we have a few bad apples. If you go back and kind of start scrolling through some of the social media reports of interviews of police officers or police commanders around the country, you will see that that's a term that's widely used about having a few bad apples. But there's a book that I read just recently, and it's by this author here. It's by Norman Stamper, and that's what it's called, To Protect and to Serve, How to Fix America's Police. I recommend you guys pick that up. It's a good read. I got it from Barnes & Noble for about 30 bucks. Okay, To Protect and Serve, How to Fix America's Police. And Mr. Stamper says, on the preface, he says, the few bad apples, I'm quoting, the few bad apples theory is not enough to explain police misconduct. The kind of behavior widely questioned and condemned today is in reality part of a deeply ingrained, historically dysfunctional structure that is a moldering orchard, or if you prefer, a rotten barrel. A fresh, healthy apple will quickly turn in such an environment, end quote. So, we say that, or he says that, to say that we no longer, police department supervisors and commissioners can no longer use that as a way out and to explain police misconduct that is ingrained in many of the departments that we hear about day in and day out. And again, as you know, Baltimore is no different. And so I wanted to address that by, first of all, looking at, I don't think that and I'm not going to say that he didn't, but I think he would probably want to rethink that statement, because the Department of Justice was just here, or they were still here, but their recommendations, and I'm going to quote their recommendations on page 2 of that 170-odd report that they gave, scathing report about the police department here in Baltimore, and I'll go down a list of what they determined to be issues with the department and issues that they had to fix. And it all had to do with the word systemic. Systemic deficiencies in Baltimore Police Department's practices contribute to constitutional violations, they erode the community trust, and inhibit effective policing. A, BPD fails to adequately supervise its officers' enforcement activities. BPD does not provide adequate policy guidance and training to its officers. BPD does not adequately supervise officers or collect and analyze data on their daily activities. BPD does not adequately support its officers. BPD fails to hold officers accountable for misconduct. BPD lacks adequate systems to investigate complaints and impose discipline. Lastly, BPD's internal culture is resistant to effective discipline. Now, I'm sure that the Commissioner read the report, and maybe he needs to read it again, because this goes beyond the theory of the bad apples, because it's endemic, it's systemic in the department. Now, I'm going to take, for you guys that aren't from Baltimore City, aren't from Maryland, out of state, my viewers from around the country and world, I will tell you that, and I just went back 17 years on this, from 2000 to 2017. I'm going to just highlight the police commissioners that have been here prior to Commissioner Darrell D'Souza. And then I'm going to tell you, when I name the names, why they aren't here. Okay, number one. In 2000, from 2002, we had a police commissioner named Ed Norris. Mr. Norris was found guilty in a federal court for tax evasion and corruption. From 2003 to 2004, we had Kevin Clark. Commissioner Clark was accused of domestic violence and perjury, and subsequently he had to leave the department. And from 2004 to 2007, we had Commissioner Ham, and Commissioner Ham had his differences with the mayor at that time, and he decided to leave as well. In 2000, from 2007 to 2012, we had five-year commissioner by the name of Frederick Beefield, and he retired. From 2012 to 2015, we had Commissioner Batts, and as you know, Commissioner Batts was the commissioner when the riots broke out and the Freddie Gray homicide occurred. However, Commissioner Batts came with a baggage from the West Coast. Commissioner Batts was involved in a couple of scandals in the San Jose Police Department as well as the Oakland Police Department. In 2015, who relieved Commissioner Batts was just fired Kevin Davis from 2015 roughly to 2017, and we all know why he was terminated. So now we have Commissioner Darrell D'Souza in 2018. Okay, and so this is where we find ourselves, and I'm connecting the commissioners with also systemic behavior. It's not just the troops, it was also a few, as I named them, I just called them off, there was also a few commissioners who were put in positions of bad behavior and misconduct, who again, these gentlemen are running a police department that commands about 3,500 people. And so everything starts at the top and filters down the bottom. Okay, so those are the things when we talk about, again, the bad apple theory is not something that's just an anecdote. It's really what it is. Now, I'm going to give you one example, and this one example will demonstrate what the Department of Justice report was talking about. Okay, now, in 2010, outside of a nightclub here in Baltimore, there was an officer by the name of Jahaji Tashamba. And he was a 17-year veteran. 17 years, long time to be on the police department. He gets into an argument with the gentleman off duty. This gentleman was a Marine who had spent 2 tours of duty in Iraq and was home for his sister's wedding. So they were doing some celebrations that night. The officer and the Marine get into an argument. They go outside. The officer pulls his weapon. The Marine puts his hands up in defensive mode. They keep arguing according to the witnesses. The officer empties 13 rounds into this Marine's chest, or at least 6 rounds hit him in the chest squarely, and he died before he even hit the ground. Now, there were witnesses, of course. He goes to trial. He's found guilty, of course. And he gets a 15-year sentence for murder, first-degree murder, mind you. Now, this is what people mean in the city when they talk about equity, okay, and fairness. This same police officer, 5 years earlier, before he killed this Marine, was accused of shooting another defenseless person in the foot. However, this time, because he was under the influence of alcohol and again off duty, he was disciplined and given his job back. Same Marine, same police officer. So this is what people mean in the city when they try to talk to the police department and try to let them understand, same with the judicial end of things in the criminal justice system, that there's got to be equity somewhere along the line in this business. And there's got to be checks and balances along the line with officers' behavior because it's out of control. And this is what we're seeing now with the gun trace task force, where things totally got out of control. So it is a systemic problem. So I just wanted to bring that one example up. Okay? Excuse me. Now, moving on. There are 7 reasons why police misconduct is systemic, and not the quote-unquote, we have a few bad apples. 1, many departments do not provide adequate training in nonviolent solutions. Hear what I said? Nonviolent solutions. Every solution to a citizen's problem does not have to end in violence, does not have to end in somebody getting killed. 2, Standards for what constitutes brutality vary widely, meaning that in some jurisdictions, what constitutes brutality there may not constitute brutality here. And 3, consequences for misconduct are minimal. I just gave you an example. That's a prime example, textbook example I just gave you. 4, settlements are shifted to taxpayers, meaning the taxpayers foot the bill for all these millions of dollars of lawsuits that you hear about. So when you hear about the New York lawsuits and Chicago lawsuits and California lawsuits, certainly they run more than what Baltimore has paid out into the tens of millions of dollars, right? The citizens are paying that bill. They are footing that bill. So that's what's going on, and we just want to know how long the taxpayers are going to want to continue to foot the bill. 5, the minorities are being unfairly targeted, and I think we all know that. I don't need to say any more about that. 6, police are increasingly militarized, and you're starting to see that type of thing when the police show up for certain things that they're kind of all in this military gear with tanks rolling through the city. You know, so it kind of, you know, it just gives the impressions that they are going to be an occupying force, if you will. 7, and police themselves. We've had police come forward and say that misconduct within their own department is widespread, and it needs to be dealt with. It's just that simple. It needs to be dealt with. And so, as much as I certainly want to give, and I am going to give the commissioner, with all due respect, with his statement, I just want him to understand that when you make that statement, there are people out there that will take that statement and expound upon it for what it really means and for what it doesn't really mean, based upon the conditions of where this department is today, in this day and time. And quite naturally, the Department of Justice has backed up everything I just told you. The Department of Justice has backed it up 100%. So I just wanted to share that with you tonight. So when you see the video, you'll see exactly, you know, what I was talking about. If you take the time to look at the statement, if you will, it's not a big deal, but I just wanted to explain, you know, that Big Apples theory being espoused by many police commissioners around the country is not going to cut it anymore. Folks in this country want results, and that's what the citizens are paying for, results, and they want to get it, and they want to get it fast. With that, I appreciate your time as always. Subscribe with the red button below your screen here so we can pick up our subscriptions, and I'll see you the next time I post. Thank you.